So Paco Plaza has a new film, and this is a prequel to his film Veronica. Now, he made the first three Rec movies and followed that up with Veronica. Veronica kind of got a lot of crap because it was one of those films that got pushed as like film too scary for people to finish. And so like really built it up hard, and then people went into it like, oh my God, and wanted to hate it so bad. And so I got kind of bombed for that. It got a lot of praise up front, of course, but my God, what a movie was hated for a bit because of that. This was like probably my main example is Veronica for the film that got unjustly hated for its bad marketing campaign because it was everywhere. It's like a film no one can finish and stuff like that. Yeah. People are like, shut up. So I hate when they do that.
Yeah.
But we are following this up with a prequel called Sister Death. And we follow our main character who is going to a former convent, now a school for girls, to become a teacher. And while she's there, she uses her supernatural abilities that she's had since she was a kid to pick up on some stuff and see, let's say, things that happened in the past. You know, I'm trying to always like be really careful.
As vague as you
can.
As
I can.
Yes.
So, okay. I haven't seen Veronica in a while. I watched it. I finished it. I actually finished it. No one else could.
Wow.
But I finished it.
You finished it.
I did. Which I remember liking it. You saw it?
No.
Oh, you never saw Veronica?
No, okay. I didn't,
yeah. Were you too scared to see it?
I don't know that I knew it existed, actually, so.
But anyway, yeah, so I think, okay. I think that this movie, because if you were to liken this to anything, right, just from recent memory, the most obvious thing you're going to think of is the Nun movies.
Yeah.
Right? And this is much better than the Nun.
Much better.
Much better than the Nun.
Much better.
So this is what the Nun should have been.
Absolutely.
Right? If they were to release this and would have had Valak in this instead, but I don't want Valak in this because Sister Death is scarier looking.
100%.
Right?
100% she's scarier.
And we see her so little. Yes. So little, right? Valak is shown way too much.
Yeah.
Way too much. Sister Death is used sparingly for sure, but man.
Great effect.
It's a great effect. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think it has a great atmosphere. I think it has a great aesthetic. I think it is creepy.
Yes.
I think that it can be a tad repetitive at times. And my biggest gripe with the film by far and away, even though it does kind of play into the plot, but I don't really care because I hate them almost all the time, is there's one too many. And one too many is one. No, there's too many fake out dream sequences. And I'll never be a fan of these. They do something, I've always said that dream sequences are cheap gimmicks created by lazy writers and filmmakers to throw something at the audience to keep their attention, to shock them, and then be like, psych!
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you about like the atmosphere and the creepiness and everything. I thought it was really wonderful, and I think that the story is very interesting as well. There's like a mystery that's being uncovered, and I was very intrigued by it, and I felt like I was engaged throughout the film. Mm-hmm. The dream sequences, there are many, but I think that at least there is some really cool imagery and visuals within them, and they are pretty like freaky. But I mean, obviously with dream sequences, it does kind of cheapen the scare when it's not for real. But at the same time, I think also with movies like this, there are ways where dream sequences are still real in a way. You know, like they're still, like whether it's a spirit or something, you know, like communicating. I think that that's also I think that's relevant to this story.
That's fine if that's all it was, but when they're killing characters and then taking it back, that's not acceptable to me because it doesn't play into the plot for me. That being said, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it does. I would have to think about who gets killed in the dreams and who gets killed in reality later. And if they're the same, then I would be like, those are like premonitions and warnings of the future. Then I'd be okay with them. I'd have to watch it for a second time. And as that happens, then I'm fine with it.
Well, that's kind of what I took the dream sequences as premonitions. I took them as premonitions.
Well, let's not confirm or deny that's the accurate thing here, because I don't remember.
But in other films too, I think that can be applicable. But
it might be
for this one,
okay.
Yeah, but I think Sister Death, like we kind of already talked about it, but one of the scariest like nun imageries that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I do really enjoy, for the most part, like religious horror. I tend to, I don't want to say I gravitate towards it, but because I don't
my least favorite. That's
gravitate towards it, but it's like it does strike a chord in me. I really love seeing religious like imagery and symbolism with dark twists. I think that there's something really interesting about that. And this film I think does that really well. And there's a lot of dark themes that are explored, like a lot of stuff. But yeah, there's a bit of gore too, sparingly used, but also I think pretty effective. But the main thing with this film is atmosphere and this story. I think those are kind of like the two driving creepy forces. And then the last act is just really cool.
The last act, really this movie has a very good payoff. Yeah. Right, yeah. The climax it definitely concludes very well. So I'm definitely on board with that. As far as the gore goes, it can be good, but just pre-warning, it does have a little CGI screwing with it.
Yeah.
And another thing I definitely appreciated with this film is that we are dealing with a school for kids.
Yeah.
There's a good amount of kids in the movie, and usually they're off the table.
Not this time.
They ain't off the table in this one. Yeah, just say that. So that's good. I'm always on board for dead kids in movies, but not in real life. And also the last thing was I had three things. Oh, funny enough, when you were talking about religious horror, and I was like, oh, it's like my least favorite. Vampires and like exorcism movies and whatnot are like my least favorite things in horror. But funny enough, I've actually seen quite a few religious horror movies in the last couple years. In the last few years for sure, that I've really enjoyed, that are like really heavily focused. Even TV shows like 30 Coins, that Spanish show, that on HBO, that's fantastic. But just this year, it's just funny to think about, like, The Nun 2 came out, and that was supposed to be the big one. But then that's easily my least favorite of these religious horror movies we watched this year, because you had Consecration.
Yeah.
You had Deliver Us. You had Sister Death. So and there's probably another one or two that I'm forgetting. But yeah, I'm actually pretty impressed with these, because these are not my bag, and I ended up enjoying them quite a bit.
Yeah.
This one definitely worked for me, and I would actually like to watch it alongside of Veronica, because this one goes right into that one. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Now I want to rewatch Veronica and see if Kaylee can get through it, because it's too scary.
It's too scary.
But this is a good one, man. This is currently streaming on Netflix, just so you know. Most of us have that, except for Ricky.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Ricky.
Sorry, Ricky.
You can't watch any of these that don't. That's a shame. That's a shame. You gotta get over that. There's a lot of cool movies coming to streaming only. But yeah, I did like where the story went. It slightly no. was gonna say kind of reminded me of another film, but no, it definitely, it really does kind of feel like a good version of The Nun.
Yeah, it really does. It really does, because I think there's a lot of similarities with it
They
too.
should have hired this guy to do The Nun.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities even within the story in some ways, you know.
And it's even like,
and it's those are kind of sorry, but those are kind of um what cliches, I guess you could say, within religious horror, like a young nun, like acolyte that's like not
oh sure,
a full nun yet, you
Yeah.
know. Anyway, what were you gonna say?
oh, I was gonna point out another similarity that like the the Nun goes into The Conjuring,
Right.
right, and this one goes
Yeah.
into Veronica, and the way they end is pretty similar
Yeah,
in that
yeah,
way.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just
Very
it
similar.
feels like just like an alternate reality good nun,
Yeah.
right?
I gotta say too that the way Sister Death looked reminded me, like it gave me the same
Oh,
impression
Terrified.
terrified as the boy at the table.
Yeah.
It was a very similar thing where it's just like, that's a dead body. That's an actual corpse. It was freaky looking. It's
Yeah.
freaky. It was kind of tripping me out a little bit. I was like, I don't like that. I don't want to look at that.
So yeah, Sister Death.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of his films up until this, if you like Veronica, if you watched The Nun or The Nun 2 and were like, I wish this was better and in Spanish, then boy do we got the movie for you.
We sure do. Sister Death.
I don't know who the hell said that.
Somebody.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. So yeah, definitely a recommendation, obviously, and one of the better movies of the month, even though there's been a lot.
There's been a lot.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So check it out. Let us know on Netflix.
Bye.
Subscribe. Bye.
Subscribe. Bye.